everyone, it's Sevy. Welcome to my guide on how to beat floor 11 and 12 of the 4.5 cycle, where we get to see a lot of familiar faces like the Terrorshroom, Capella and Capellius, and Shadowy Husks. Surprisingly, we also get the Mek local legend that lets everyone be Xiao for a few minutes, so that's a fun change. Anyway, as usual, this video discusses strategies and tips to help you beat the chambers more easily. Let me just flash some general reminders before you tackle Spiral Abyss, which you can pause to take a quick read. This Abyss blessing favors Geo by unleashing a shockwave when you create a Geo construct, up to once every 6 seconds. So starting with floor 11, its buff is a 75% Geo damage bonus, clearly to favor the ongoing Geo banners. Both halves are largely AoE focused. The most notable enemies in the first half are the Hydro Phantasms in the third chamber, as they are immune to Hydro and being frozen. So make sure you have non-Hydro damage dealers and use other types of reactions against them. In this half, I use the classic Sucrose National team, wherein Pyro will be super effective in triggering vaporizes against those phantasms. The second half's notable enemies are some Fontaine Aberrants with elemental shields and Consecrated Beasts. For the Aberrants, an Animo unit can make quick work of them by swirling their elements onto each other, but bringing counter-element units works too. Then, because of the beasts, you will want a reliable shielder or healer unless you're good enough at dodging their hard hits. Note that the beasts have some resistance to being frozen, so it won't be as effective on them. For this second half, I brought a Quicken Hyperbloom team. For the first wave, just go back to where you started and let those Hilichurls charge towards you, which will easily group them for AoE damage. That's also where the next wave spawns, so it's a very convenient position to consecutively kill them.
Everybody stand back!
The next two waves have ranged Hilichurls and a Geo Samatril on one side, then two Mitochurls on the other. Focus on the ranged Hilichurl group and the Mitochurls will head towards you anyway. If the Geo Samatril gets its pillars up, those can be broken fastest with heavy attacks and Zhongli's hold skill, or you can suck them off the pillars with an Animo Vortex, or just use ranged attacks to reach them. The next half starts with 4 shrooms, and I prefer going to the back so I can edge bait them if ever they charge at me. The Dendro and Cryo shrooms fly up, while the Geo shroom can stagger you with headbutt attacks. The second wave has Fontaine Aberrants with their respective shield types. Swirling them together with Animo will make them reduce each other's shields, which is pretty convenient, but if you have their respective counter elements, those will quickly get rid of their shields too. Here, there are 4 of the new Xuan Wind beasts all across the map. You can just go focus on one, or go back to the spawn point like I did, as they will eventually all move towards you, so grouping them won't be a problem.
Nice and spicy. Animo test 6308. Swirl. Everybody stand back. Eat this. Stand clear.
Next are 2 mechs. One spawns a turret. I focus on the right one and let the other melee mech charge at me, which groups them both, and from there it's easy to deal AoE damage to them. Getting rid of the one on the right also gets rid of the turret. In the second half, the Consecrated Beasts are making a comeback, though they're pretty easy here and at least they spawn one by one only. They also focus on you, so you'll have no problems with grouping them or aggroing them to you. If they bring out their colored block thing, getting rid of that will make them vulnerable, and you can immediately destroy them by using their own elements, while using other elements or physical attacks will be slower. So that's Dendro against the Fang Beast, and Pyro against the Vulture. That's your best chance to finish them off if you reach that point. Then try your best to avoid or shield against their attacks since they can hit hard and potentially stagger you.
Scatter.
Midnight Fantastic.
Let the show begin. Propagate. Spring forth. Our bond is strong.
For the last chamber, we get 2 Hydro Phantasms, so start by focusing on the right side one since it has a ranged attack. They're immune to Hydro and can't be frozen in these states, so make sure you rely on other reactions or types of damage to fight them. Pyro is particularly effective since you can trigger Vaporizes on their own Hydro aura. Anyway, they stay quite close to each other, so you should be able to hit them easily with AoE attacks. Then you will want a reliable healer or shielder, or just be good at dodging their hits because they can hit really hard.
Nice and spicy. Eat this!
This last half of floor 11 spawns 2 construction mechs and 1 enhancer mech that buffs the other 2. If you run all the way forward past the enhancer mech and stay in the middle, the 2 construction mechs should swerve into each other as well. This is a good opportunity to start your AoE attacks and hit both of them. After their initial grouping, it can be a bit of RNG for how they'll move around, but they will still generally target you. Be careful of their swinging and spinning attacks since those can stagger you quite a bit. Then the third mech will ideally die as you attack the other 2 with AoE attacks. Moving on to floor 12. In the first half, having a Hydro or Electro unit is recommended as they are the fastest at breaking Pyro and Dendro shields respectively, which you'll encounter in the first chamber. Having an Anemo crowd controller will also be great in the first 2 chambers for easy grouping. Freeze can also be a crowd control option, but just note that the final chamber boss cannot be frozen. Unfortunately, shielding can work against you here since the Husk enemies gain their own buffs if they attack you with a shield active, so it'll prolong the fight. It's preferable to use a healer here instead. For the second half, Quicken can help in the first chamber against the Terrorshroom, but it's not that necessary as you can just brute force it with any team. The more significant consideration is the last chamber boss, which has a strong Geo shield. As long as you have a melee unit, you can use plunging attacks to destroy the shield with blunt damage, since its gravity reduction allows you to do high jumps. Generally, you can get away with this, as I'll demonstrate later on. More convenient alternatives can be Zhongli, whose hold skill and burst reduce a huge portion of its shield health, Geo units in general whose Geo attacks are also effective against it, and Claymore users and plunge attackers for the blunt damage. And of course, have strong enough healing or shielding to keep you alive. I'll be using the same teams for this floor. Starting with the first chamber half, if you have a Hydro or Electro unit, you can quickly destroy the Pyro Mage's and Breacher's shields. And if you have an Anemo unit, you can swirl the Pyro Aura of the Mage's shield onto the Breachers to help destroy their Dendro shields. You should ideally be dealing AoE damage to the Breachers, but if not, then you can just brute force with single target damage.
Witness the power! Everybody stand back! Let's... Goba, get them! Eat this!
Next are 2 operatives, and I guess one thing to note is that their HP bars are actually reversed from where you started, just in case you might lose track of who you're dealing damage to. I prefer focusing on the one with the right HP bar who's on the left of the battlefield, because the other one tends to charge towards you anyway, so that can easily group them together. Be careful of the Frost operative as they can melt or freeze you if you apply Pyro or Hydro to yourself. It's preferable to deal AoE damage to them simultaneously so you won't spend too much time trying to kill them one after another. But again, you can always just brute force it if you have enough single target DPS anyway. I'm going to ensure that I have full energy for the next chamber, and leaving 1 minute for the next boss can generally be enough for a full start clear.
Nice and spicy! Let's light it up!
Enjoy.
Absorption test!
Apologies.
Let's light it up! Stand clear! Goba, get them!
Let's light it up.
Absorption test!
So here's the chicken again, and if you've done previous abysses or fought it in the overworld, you know the drill. You can force it to become enraged, then disabled by inflicting it with quicken reactions, and watch out for its enraged attacks if it charges, but while it's down, its resistances are also reduced, so you can deal a lot more damage to it. If you use Pyro to burn it, it will summon shrooms, which aren't a big deal, but can be a bit annoying. Then of course, you can also ignore these reactions and just simply brute force it.
Exterminate! Lightning purified! Stand with me! The show begins. Propagate!
The first wave here is various elemental specters that are immune to their respective element, but it's easy to kill them as long as you have different elements too. Crowd controlling them is also effective to easily deal AoE damage. Then the second wave is 3 Pyro Whopper Flowers. They tend to teleport towards you anyway, so grouping them shouldn't be that hard. If you have crowd controllers, then it'll be way easier. And then if they bring up their Pyro Shields, Hydro and Electro are the fastest way to break them. Breaking them stuns the Whopper Flowers, whereas letting them charge completely gives them ranged attacks. The last wave is for Shadowy Husks. When the Geohusk summons its barrier, just go behind it to deactivate it. I prefer going after the Anemo Husk first with the bow at the right. Its range attacks are pretty annoying, and the other ones are melee, so they tend to go to you anyway. Try to push, bait, crowd control, and keep them all together as much as possible so you can deal AoE damage and finish them off faster. If not, picking them off one by one is fine, though it'll take a bit longer. Also, be aware that you'll start to get the rolling ground damage thing, so if you're not careful, you may lose too much HP. In the second half is the Perpetual Mechanical Array, which is a very straightforward fight. It was featured in a recent Abyss cycle, so if you've done that, you know how this goes, and you can totally skip this. If not, then let's just recap. It telegraphs its attacks pretty obviously, so just keep on dodging them if you don't have a shielder. If it flies into the air, you can still continue attacking it if you have a ranged unit.
Stand with me! Scatter!
No rest for the wicked.
Lightning Sheriff! My royal... Let's dance! Dissipate! Go, Barbara!
After around 40 seconds, or at 30% HP, it enters its defensive mode and creates 4 Ruin Sentinels which have their own attack and movement patterns. Look for the one with the ring aura. That's who you need to kill to make the PMA vulnerable again. If it's the Dorito, it dashes away from you, so as a trick, keep it between you and the PMA so it'll dash to the PMA. This way, it's easier to start hitting the PMA as soon as the Dorito is dead. If it's the crab, then it'll be very annoying to kill if it puts up its shields, so you can try stunning it by poking its eye or baiting it to the PMA so it'll jump on you. If it's the snake-like one, you can actually bait it beside the PMA since it will try to teleport towards you, which can also make it more convenient to kill the PMA afterwards. Once the PMA is vulnerable, then kill it ASAP.
I'll settle this! Propagate! Dissipate! Out of my way!
Midnight.
For the last first half, we have the Dirge of Copelia. Copelia will deal anemo damage to you and push you around, while Copelius will go around the battlefield and fire cryo-wave projectiles at you. You can try to keep him in your sights so you can track where he is and if he's attacking you. These attacks can also trigger reactions on you, like Melt from Bennett's self-pyro application, so they can hit pretty hard when that happens. Copelius always returns to Copelia and restarts the cycle. It's mostly a matter of focusing your attacks on Copelia and staying alive from their constant barrage of attacks, which follow a consistent pattern anyway. Dodging or strong healing will be important if you don't have a shielder. Memorizing Copelia's attack patterns, if you're not familiar with it, will also help a lot.
Everybody stand back! Know my soul! Witness the power! Stand clear! Nice and spicy!
Finally, we have the newcomer in the Abyss lineup, the Fontaine Local Legend version of the Arithmetic Enhancer Mek. Its special mechanics are summoning a strong Geo Shield and creating a gravity reduction field that can allow you to jump high. The shield won't be easily destroyed by normal reactions, and you'll want to use blunt attacks to destroy it. Melee plunging attacks are an example of blunt attacks, so that's the default way to destroy the shield. Other options are using Claymore attacks, Geo attacks, and then Zhongli's Hold, Skill, and Burst are really effective against it. Once the shield is gone, a Numa attack can further disable it, but at this point, you can deal damage to it normally and it'll be much easier to kill. If it puts up its shield again, then repeat the cycle until it's dead.
Out of my way!
Midnight.
I'll protect us. Scatter! Germinate! Odds revealed! Go, Barbara, go! Stand with me! Lightning purified! Oh! Again!
And that's it for this cycle's Abyss Guide. Comment down below what you think of the enemies in this Abyss cycle and what teams you use to defeat them. If this video helped you out, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and I will see you all soon. Take care!
I created another universe and found...